Well, let me thank all of you for being here today, and I thank the local leadership for joining us here today to talk a little bit about the infrastructure package that has just been approved. And I don't know if the president has signed it yet. I think he said last week that he was going to have a formal signing. What that means, I suspect, is that he's already signed it in private so people can start getting their money. And there'll be something of a formal nature since we are out of session this week. We're not going to go back in session until, I think, Monday. And I suspect that next week there'll be some kind of a formal ceremony doing all of this. Hey, buddy, I was beginning to ask about you. I thought maybe you'd taken the ship somewhere.
No, sir.
Okay.
I would not miss this.
Thank you so much. Jim, and by the way, congratulations on your pending retirement.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the work that we've done together over the years. I suspect that all of you are a bit surprised that we were able to get this bill done. I want to talk about that a little bit because I think that one of the things that seem to be, if not misunderstood, people just don't understand is when you have a group of people who come to a body like the House of Representatives, where you have 435 people trying to find common ground. You need 218 votes to get anything enacted into law. Now, House members run every 2 years. They don't have time to be statesman-like for 2 years and political for 2 and serve for 2. The senators get that luxury. We don't. Every 2 years, they go back to their constituents. And therefore, the debate and the discussions that take place in the House of Representatives is totally different from that what you get in the Senate. You don't have the kind of time that it takes to develop these relationships and trade votes. You don't do that in the House. And then on top of that, you've got people, I go from Charleston, I'm interested in the port. The vast majority of the members in the House of Representatives are not interested in the port. They ain't got no ports. So why would they be interested? And that's what we have to deal with. And so when we were trying to put this bill together, we had people with varied interest, and therefore they were not all that concerned about others. Now, about 10 years ago, I formed something called that we call the Rural Broadband Task Force. Now, the reason I formed that is because as these discussions of infrastructure came about, I noticed in these discussions that people were confining, even expressing the will to do infrastructure that's traditional. They were using that word, we are all for doing traditional infrastructure. Well, broadband is not traditional. That's a very new infrastructure issue. And so I got a little bit concerned about that because I'm a believer that broadband is to the 21st century what electricity was to the 20th century. I believe that very strongly. And I wanted to get broadband on their minds. To get about 30 House members. We represented rural areas, not southern rural, but rural. I'm talking about New York rural, Rhode Island rural. Got these people together, and we sat down around the table, and we mapped out a strategy as to how to get broadband into the infrastructure bill. And so these kinds of efforts were the backdrop to a lot of this. Now, we've come up with a bill that's in excess, about a 1.1 to 1.2 trillion dollar bill. However, all of that's not new money. A lot of that money, in fact, over half of it, came from other sources, money that's been there that had not been committed for other things to bring together this bill. And you've been given a handout as to how this money has been divided up. And I wanted to just mention a few things about South Carolina. And since I talked about non-traditional broadband, I want to say, explain exactly what has happened with broadband in South Carolina. When I first formed the task force, I reached out to state officials, the governor, others who had responsibility and some an interest in broadband, to see how much it would cost to build South Carolina out 100%. I wanted to see what it would cost for South Carolina to connect every household in the state to the internet. They told me it would be somewhere between $500 and $600 million to do that. Well, we didn't let the number bother us. We went to work, and what we did was we thought that it would be good to take a look at what kind of infrastructure is already here. South Carolina pioneered decades ago in ETV, educational television. We were pioneers in that. Those towers that were there for ETV are still there. So we looked at what we could do, map out the entire state, and this may surprise a lot of people, but the best internet maps that exist in the United States today are the South Carolina maps. Jim Swischenter, I have a hard time pronouncing his last name, but don't ask me to spell it. But he led this effort. And I brought him up to Washington to sit down with the rural broadband people. And they were so impressed until he has gone around the country now to other states, helping them do their maps. And I just wanted to tell you exactly where we're at on that issue. The American Rescue Plan, the monies that came to the state as a result of the American Rescue Plan that was signed into law earlier this year, the state has given a tentative commitment of around $435 million of the American Rescue Plan money for broadband. You may remember something called the CARES Act last year. Of the CARES Act money that came to the state, and I was on the phones with the governor often. Henry and I don't see eye to eye politically on anything, but we are very good personal friends, and we've been that way for a long, long time. He knows when it comes to politics, we don't talk politics. We do talk about what we can do for South Carolina. And he and I are on the phone all the time. And by the way, on January 6th, when I was taken to the so-called undisclosed location, the very first phone call I got was from Henry McMaster, inquiring about my well-being. And he followed that by saying, I'm getting ready to do my State of the State address, and I just want you to know I'm going to add another $30 million in my request for your broadband, is the way he put it. Well, the CARES Act has got $17 million that the state has allocated for broadband. Now, the FCC has something that we call the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, Federal Communications Commission, that some of you may know or remember. My daughter Mignon sat on that for about 9 years. she was on the FCC. They have committed $120 million to South Carolina for broadband. And in this bill, there's $100 million for broadband. And we believe that South Carolina's share of that, coupled with what has already been committed, will allow us to build broadband, build it out in the state to every household. Now, that's not me saying that. They're telling me that these monies will allow that to take place. And I'm looking forward to South Carolina leading the way on that. Now, the state legislature, all these are federal dollars. Not a single dollar of that is state money. Now, the state says that they're all going to commit $50 million in state monies. So to be clear, that will get us where we need to be. Now, the $100 million is South Carolina's share. The bill has, and I think you see it on your handout, $65 billion for broadband for the country. So the $100 million is just South Carolina's share. It should be here somewhere. Y'all don't see that? Now, yeah, here it is. So what we think is that South Carolina is going to be in pretty good shape as a result of this bill. Now, when we're going from broadband, you see here how this money is coming to the state. So everything on here, these are not national numbers. These are state numbers. Now, I got a phone call, once again, I just remembered it. Yesterday, I was in California, over I was Michigan yesterday, California the day before. And I looked at my messages earlier this morning, and there was a message there from Henry McMaster. And the governor said to me in the message, you don't need to call me back, but I want you to know that I'm committing, I think he said 1.6 billion of this money to what we call malfunction junction. This is a problem on I-26. There's been a problem in this state for a couple of decades. And so that's just the first thing I've seen that he's going to do. And I think he knows I drive through there a lot. So I suspect he wanted me to know that that was going to get fixed. That to me would be great for the people in and around Columbia. But there's $4.6 billion for South Carolina for federal highways. $4.6 billion. I don't know what what Charleston's and the Low Country share that's going to be. They'll have to take that up with the legislators. My job at the federal level is to get the money out of Washington down here. And so this is, we're going to have $274 million to repair bridges, another $510 million for water infrastructure. I want to say a little bit about that. Water infrastructure is not just about water going to people's homes. It's about creating water systems for communities. We're now enjoying here in the Low Country the new Volvo plant. We got 1,800 employees there now, I think, and they said they plan to go to 4,000. They also said that they plan to build out 100% of their automobiles are going to be electric. I forgot the time frame. Well, this is a big, big deal because a big part of this, $70 million will be coming to South Carolina to set up charging, a network of charging stations. with anticipation of electric automobiles. Because what we did with this bill is to fix it so that you'll have a network of charging stations throughout the country that someone can get an electric automobile and go all the way across country and not have to worry about whether or not a charging station would be available to them. Volvo came to South Carolina because South Carolina was able to beat Georgia out because we had the water. And we had the water because of the Lake Marion Regional Water Agency, which we did not have. Could not compete. That was the way for us to get these kinds of industrial development projects here to the low country. We now, in South Carolina, we got Volvo. North Charleston got Mercedes-Benz. They build the Sprinter. The Sprinter is built here in North Charleston. Greenville, Spartanburg got BMW. And we make more tires, more car tires in South Carolina now than they make in Ohio. And that, to me, is why we have to do infrastructure. That's how we make these rural communities attractive. At the time I go through, if I get off 26 up around Somerville now, I'm almost immediately lost. I don't know which road to take. And just a few years ago, there was no road to take. And so these kinds of things are very, very important. So I just wanted to be here today to talk about this, and I ask, I guess since you got to get ready to leave, Jim, I'm going to let you talk first and see if you got anything to add to this.
Sure. Thank you, Congressman Clyburn. Congressman Clyburn has been a steadfast supporter of the port projects, from our harbor deepening to various grants that we've gotten. In the bill that has just been passed is $17 billion for port infrastructure. As you all know, between 2017 and 2031, we'll have about a $3 billion capital plan in the port. So anything we can do to qualify Congressman for that would be very, very helpful to us. Also, the idea of getting reimbursed for our pending share of the harbor deepening project in a timely fashion would be very, very important as well. So the Congressman has been central to our efforts, really. When I started in 2009, we talked about building a lot of infrastructure, and we probably have the best infrastructure of any U.S. port today, but because of the support from our legislative delegation. So I'd like to thank you. With my back to you, I'm sorry, but I would like to thank you for that. And we have a lot more to do, but that's all good investments. The Volvo plant, other businesses come here because we have a great port. And that's where global supply chain businesses locate today. So thank you for your invitation to have me here today and for your support.
I want to thank you for your stewardship of this port. We're always competing, as you know, with Savannah and everything on the East Coast. I was so pleased to get your numbers and to share them with people in Washington. They were talking about how many ships were hanging around out there in the Pacific and couldn't get to port. And in California, I was able to boast about what you were able to do here to keep things going. Now I know we got Carter here.
The airport.
Yes, well, the airport first.
Yes, sir. Well, with all of the success that Congressman Clyburn and the port bring to South Carolina, more industry, more people come, and more need for people to fly. So I represent the airport. I'm Hernan Pena. And airport infrastructure is equally important as an economic development mechanism to have our state grow. And we want to thank the Congressman for all the support that we've been getting throughout the years, and especially now with this infrastructure bill, which is going to allow us to tap additional federal funds to grow our airports in South Carolina. Charleston, as you may know, is the largest and busiest airport in South Carolina, and we have additional needs for infrastructure. And we can't generate all our funding by ourselves. So we need the help of the federal government and the state to grow further. Thank you again, Congressman, for your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Y'all got that number, $161 million coming to the state for the ports. He's going to have to battle Greenville and Columbia. and I guess you know, Hilton Head is connected with Savannah. I don't know how they're gonna divvy that money up down to Hilton Head and, Augusta Aiken, but, I'm sure you'll get your fair share of it. Go ahead, Carter.
Thank you, Congressman. I'm Mike Seekings, Chairman of CARTA. The Congressman told us when he was walking in just before this press conference that he had gotten up at 4 o'clock this morning to travel down to deliver this good news. So express news is great news for all of us here. Also, Congressman, you mentioned 10 years ago being in Somerville and not being able to find a road, not being able to find your way around. As you probably know, we in the state of South Carolina, for the first time in our history, are about to embark on a large-scale mass transit project, Low Country Rapid Transit. Never, not only in this region, we've never done it in the entire state. And so to show that things have changed and attitudes have changed, public transit is integral to what we're going to do in terms of economic development in this community. The port, the airport, and all of the things that we do to move people around the state when they get here are just so wildly important. And so as I look down and see $366 million in this bill to improve public transportation, it couldn't be more timely. So as we embark on Low Country Rapid Transit, as we grow as a community, as South Carolina has leadership that's brought us these funds, the infrastructure is just going to continue to get better, livability will increase, and it'll be just another incredible sales point for our great state. So, Congressman, thank you so much. I look forward to being part of all this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Actually, I'm a national vice chair for the American Council of Engineering Companies, and infrastructure is one of the biggest things that a lot of our members do. And infrastructure is something we've been pushing for years. So, Congressman, we definitely appreciate the vote and we appreciate the money for infrastructure.
You know, you guys are the ones that sort of stuck a pin in this. You all did the grading of our infrastructure and gave us a C minus. It reminded me of my college grades. So that's when I found out I had to improve. But look, thank you guys for all that you do to help keep us focused. And I just want to say Carter is about to take one of my arguments away from me. Because one of the things that, in fact, I argued strenuously months ago was not to have an increase in the gasoline tax. And one of my arguments is that you all asking rural South Carolinians to pay more for gasoline so you all can have urban transit. Now, when y'all put that together, y'all will take that argument away from me, but that's progress.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'll find a new argument the next time.